on the event wagering drafts is we've set aside 2.5 hours based off of kind of the last time. Doubtful that we'll need it, but if we're going long, we'll take a break about halfway through for about 10 minutes and then get on with it. The way we're going to work our discussion is similar to last time. We're going to cover the policy issues first, those 4 policy issues, such as licensing fees, privilege fees, licensing allocation, as well as platforms. Then we'll move into issue set 1, which covers internal controls, leaked data, servers, and storage geofencing. Issue set 2, systems and platforms, integrity and security assessments, event and wagers, and player accounts, and then we'll close it out with promotions and bonuses, accounting and auditing, as well as patron disputes, debt set-off, and any sort of miscellaneous items. Regarding how to participate, please, if you are not speaking, go ahead and mute your microphones. If you've joined by Google, you'll see the little control bar down at the bottom, the center of your screen. Your mute, unmute is the button on the far left. If you do want to comment or you have a question, please use the raised hand function, which is the center button there, and somebody from our staff will call on you to speak. We ask you to keep your comments to about 2 minutes to see, depending on, to give everyone an opportunity to participate. If we're, not really having a lot of questions, I may lift that limit, but try to right now keep it at 2 minutes. And then when you're done speaking, go ahead and you can lower your hand function. All right. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, we're going to talk about the policy issues first. So if people have questions about platforms, the license fees, the privilege fees, or how to allocate licenses, that really affects the tribal side as well as the limited wagering operator side. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Go ahead, Aaron.
First raised hand is Andrew Diss.
Morning, Director Vogt and Mr. Fleming again. We'll jump right into the fees, I suppose. So under R19-4-105 for procedures for licensing, you have 3 terms listed: an application fee, an initial license fee, and an annual license fee. And then looking at the legislation and the statute, 2 of those terms are reflected. However, the 3rd term, annual license fee, is not in the legislation. There's a term that is used called a renewal fee. And from the Coyotes' perspective, we think that term, annual license fee, should be changed to renewal to reflect that terminology that's in 5-1310 of ARS. Basically, we feel like it could be misinterpreted where we would be getting charged twice for the same privilege, where in year 1, where you pay the initial license fee and an annual license fee. We feel like those 2 should be rolled in together, or that annual license fee should be credited just as the application fee is for that initial license. So 2 suggestions: either provide a credit or just change the terminology from annual license fee to renewal fee to reflect the language in statute.
Okay, thank you for that.
Next raised hand is Amy Lynn Pierce.
Thank you, Amy Lynn Pierce with the Diamondbacks. I wanted to comment on the number of skins. And Director Vogt and the department, we want to thank you for listening to our comments at the last meeting and the comments that we submitted, and appreciate the work on this. I think we're really close. We still think that there needs to be more clarification that you are allowed to have 2 different platforms, specifically one for mobile and one for retail, but you are only allowed to have 1 mobile entry into the market. So you can only have 1 skin for that. We are okay with being able to co-brand that skin, meaning that, for example, we've partnered with Caesars and the Diamondbacks could co-brand that skin. We would be perfectly fine with that, but not okay with more than one skin into the mobile market. So we do think that there should be more clarification on that. And I also am speaking on this issue, speaking on behalf of the PGA and NASCAR. They were part of drafting the legislation as well, and we all agree on that. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Currently no hands up.
Do you want to? Thank you, Lynn. Lauren, can you address the licensing that Andrew raised?
Yeah, so Andrew, just to come back to your comment here, the way that this is set up is that you'll pay your application fee. Your application fee is credited towards the initial license fee, so that's part of one group. And then, as it reads in 105G, after 12 months, your first annual license fee is due, and then another 12 months it'll be due again. So essentially, you're just paying on an annual basis what that renewal of the same price as your initial is up to that 5-year period. So the 5 payments of 150 will add up to the same 750.
Okay,
If that helps.
all right. I think we've got some other hands raised, but
Yeah,
you are joining.
Andrew Diss again.
Aaron, just a moment. For those of you joining by phone, if you have a comment that you want to make, go ahead and email publicaffairs@azgaming.gov. Please just give your first name and last name and who you are representing or who you're affiliated with, and then we'll call on you that way. I think we did have one person that was trying via phone to make a question. Okay, I'm sorry, Aaron, I stepped on you. Go ahead.
No, sorry. Andrew Diss, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification on the licensing fees. Moving on to the privilege fees, you know, in the legislation, it instructed your department to consider what the highest rate that the tribal nations pay, which my understanding is 8%. And so I'm wondering why the mobile wagering percentage has been raised to 10%. And while I'm on, I just want to ditto Amy Lynn's comments from the Diamondbacks. Arizona Coyotes are in lockstep with our partners at NASCAR, PGA, and MLB Baseball on her comments. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we not only looked at kind of what the compact says regarding the tribes on their contribution rate. We looked at other jurisdictions. We looked at a lot of these things considering like overhead. So that's why you see a difference between brick and mortars at 8% and then 10% for the mobile. I think we're in line with other jurisdictions. And with the less overhead on mobile, we thought that made good sense.
All right, next up is Andrew Winchell.
Hi, thank you for having
Andrew, you're hard to hear right now.
sorry, let me try to turn it up. Hold on.
Still can't hear you. Okay, I think he's going to try to get back into the meeting.
Yep. Oh, well, he's going ahead. We'll do Kevin Cochran.
Hey everyone, Kevin Cochran with DraftKings. I just had a quick follow-up question. that I wanted to make sure my notes were correct. So based on the annual licensing fees, does that mean after the $750,000 would be paid, we would not pay an annual license fee until the start of year 5 or year 6, whatever the math works out to be? Is that correct?
Correct. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bert.
No, under 105G, your next fee would be due within 12 months of when you received your license. And then that would be due, and then the next 12 months after that. So you're basically prepaying for the renewal, essentially. If that makes sense.
Kind of. Just sorry to ask another question. So just, we would pay the $100,000 upfront, and then at 12 months we would be expected to pay the full $650, I guess. That would not be, or we would have the 100 added to the $650 to make it $750, which is our initial, and then the start of the second year we would pay $150 as a well. Is that correct?
No, so the 100 is your application fee, so that would allow you to apply. Then if you're approved for licensure, then you would pay the remaining $650 of the total $750 license cost. Then you would be allowed to start on whenever you started. Then 12 months from that, you would pay the first $150. 12 months after that, the next $150. 12 months after that, the next $150.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much. I was just making sure that my notes were correct.
Okay, Andrew Winchell.
Hi, can you hear me now?
No, it's like your volume is turned down.
Yeah.
I will try to fix that. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Any other hands?
Yeah, we'll go with J.R. Loera.
Yes, hi, this is J.R. Loera, Fort Dallas. So you just mentioned the $150,000 annual license.
JR, I'm sorry, you're kind of breaking up. Can you try that again?
Yeah, can you hear me clearly?
Keep going.
You had mentioned the 150, potentially rolling over.
I'm sorry, JR, we can't hear you. You're breaking up too much.
No problem. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
we can. Go for it.
You had mentioned that the $150,000 annual fee, if I understand correctly, potentially applying to a renewal fee after 5 years. And so my question is to make sure I understand correctly, if a operator does receive a renewal after the initial 5-year period, there will not be another $750,000 license fee. They will just continue to pay the annual $150,000 license fee after that 5-year renewal.
Correct. Correct.
All right, currently no hands up.
And
Oh, there we go.
I very apologize. I think I just missed your answer. This is JR again. Can you please repeat your answer to my question?
Yes, and the answer is correct. You are correct in your assumption.
Okay, thank you very much.
We got Andrew Winchell again.
You're muted, Andrew.
All right, no other hands up right now.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions regarding platforms, licensing fees, privilege fees, or licensing allocation?
All right, we got Sarah Delsheim.
Hi, yes, this is Sarah Dalsheim on behalf of the San Carlos Apache tribe. I just wanted to make a comment that we believe that the legislation is clear to allow for multiple skins and had a little bit of confusion on the wording and difference between platform and system.
Thank you, Sarah. That's a good point. And maybe I'll turn it over to Jim Stipe to just kind of clarify that. Jim?
Yes, we've gotten a couple of comments now on skins and platforms and I guess somewhat opposing viewpoints. So I think it would help you maybe if we explained our approach. We do not use the term skin. So we do that very deliberately. I think it appeared in one place in the rules before. We've very deliberately removed it. So please, whatever you thought a skin was before or in another jurisdiction, please leave that behind and focus on the terms we do use, which are terms from the statute, which are terms event wagering systems and event wagering platforms. I'd ask that you guys really study the use of those terms and what they mean in this context, and kind of leave behind whatever whatever you view a skin to be, because it's really not relevant to what we're dealing with here. On the issue of multiple platforms, everybody will have a platform to start. They can apply for a second platform. The statute is, if you look at 5-1303G, it says that an event wagering operator may use more than one event wagering platform. So we try to deal with that. Event wagering operators are not limited to teams with retail and mobile. They also include tribes who only have mobile. So we're kind of conducting a bit of a balancing act there, and I think we worked hard to find a good middle ground. And I just ask that you look at those things and study that approach. And if you have additional comments, you can provide them. But that's the approach we took, and that's the legislation we're dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, we got Amy Lynn Pierce.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. I just wanted to follow up on that. In the discussions for the legislation, the multiple platforms was to allow a different platform for mobile versus retail. So our belief is that the intent was never to allow more than one mobile platform. So we will continue to raise concerns about that. In our opinion, that essentially just allows for two mobile licenses. So our concerns remain the same, and I appreciate the clarification on the terms, but our concerns do remain the same as far as that issue goes.
All right. Well, this is Jim Stipe again. I would just say, really study what we mean by a platform. A platform, as we define it, if you look at our definition, is not a sublicense. There can only be one system. There cannot, in other words, a second platform does not mean you have a second operator. It's not a sublicensed operator. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Amy Lynn.
No hands currently raised.
All right. Is there anyone who joined by phone that had a question on this section before we move on to issue set 1?
Hi, this is Andrew Winchell from FanDuel. My apologies for not having the other system work. The questions that we had was mainly in relation to the fact that the designee is not treated as the event wagering operator. There's a separate license. Now, there is language which acknowledges the fact that you don't have to pay the fee for the event wagering operator license and the designee license. But it appears to us that it would be simpler and more in line with the intent of the statute just to simply eliminate the designee license and have the entity which is eligible for an event wagering operator license. When they designate somebody, that designee just becomes the licensed event wagering operator.
Okay, thank you. All right, last go around for the policy rules before we move on to issue set number 1. Okay, issue set number 1, internal controls, leak data, servers and storage, and geofencing. Are there any questions or comments on that?
All right, first up is Leonardo Villalobos.
Yeah, hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. So my name is Leo Villalobos, and I work with MLB, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to provide input. So we have a few comments related to official league data, and I'll note that these comments are supported by the NBA and the PGA Tour as well. The first comment relates to paragraph A under league data, and it says that operators have to use the league data for wagers which are not determined solely by the final score or final outcome, and which are placed after the start of the event. And based on our reading, we think that does not require operators to use official league data to settle prop bets placed before the start of events. And under the statute, I think as long as the sports governing body opts in or exercises its opt-in right, that the operators would have to use official league data to settle all prop bets, regardless of whether they are placed before or after the start of the event. We think that clearly falls under Tier 2 wagers, which is the language used in the statute. And we'll submit written comments with suggestions on how to fix that if that is not indeed what you intended writing the legislation. The second comment we have is with paragraph D. And our concern is that paragraph D does not tether the ability to use alternative data sources to sports governing bodies' inability to offer official league data on commercially reasonable terms. And again, going back to the statute, we think it's very clear that if the sports governing body opts in to the official league data, that operators would not be able to use any alternative data sources unless they can demonstrate that the governing body does not offer official league data on commercially reasonable terms. And as drafted, we think this section, it requires a detailed analysis of the necessity to use an alternative data source, but we think that's not clear and not sufficiently tethered to, again, the availability of official league data on commercially reasonable terms. And tied to this, we think it would also be wise to kind of enumerate factors that the department could consider when determining whether the sports governing body is in fact offering official league data on commercially reasonable terms. And again, we'll provide written comments with suggestions on language on that front. And finally, with paragraph C2, which talks about how the data has to be accurate, reliable, timely, etc. We obviously have no issue with the intent behind this rule. We think it's a little broad and ill-defined as drafted, however. And of course, we do think that official league data is the most complete, accurate, reliable data out there. But we think that the language as drafted invites considerable subjectivity. And we think that the language about the quality of the data would be better placed, as I referenced before, when in language that talks about the factors that the department can consider when determining that the sports governing body is in fact offering official league data on commercially reasonable terms. But that's all from MLB. If you have questions or follow up on that, please let us know. But thanks again for your consideration.
Okay, great. I think Amy Lynn has her hand raised.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I won't repeat everything that Leo just said, but I will say that as a representative for the Diamondbacks, we echo all of his comments about the official league data and would just add that it's extremely important to us because this is directly tied to the integrity of the game, and that is really at the top of our concerns when it comes to sports betting. So in order for us to really move forward and be comfortable with this, and for our leagues to be comfortable with this, we would need to see these changes implemented. Thank you.
I don't believe there's any hands raised right now.
Okay, great, thank you. Any further issues on internal controls like data, server and storage, geofencing?
Hi, yes, this is Andrew Winchell again from FanDuel. On league data, in kind of the same way that the concerns that were expressed by the leagues there, FanDuel also has concerns with the way that the league data language is currently written from a different perspective. The first thing we would point out is that there are defined terms in statute for Tier 1, Tier 2 wagers, which should be utilized, as well as the definition of a sports governing body, which acknowledges which entities are eligible to apply to require the use of official league data, and that there's standard language, relatively standard language between Michigan, Virginia, and language that's come to a general compromise between a number of operators and a number of leagues in relation to how to determine whether or not official league data is being offered under commercially reasonable terms. And so we will be submitting written comments to, again, follow the similar pattern that we've seen in other jurisdictions to address this issue.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Yes, next we have Jerry Lyman.
Hi, this is Jeremy Lemoon speaking for BetMGM. I just wanted to chime in also on the issue of official league data and the importance of further clarifying the term commercially reasonable. I'd just like to echo my colleague in FanDuel, Andrew's comment on the importance of defining that and outlining the factors to determine what commercially reasonable means. We understand that the event wagering statute contains a commercially reasonableness requirement, and we appreciate that the department has incorporated that requirement in its most recent draft. However, we recommend that the department go a step further by defining what that term means, given that the Department of Gaming is the primary agency tasked to regulate and administer event wagering in Arizona. We feel that it is well within the department's purview to further define the term that's left undefined in the statute to give more clarity and predictability to the industry, the operators, and for the benefit as well of Arizonans. Our recommendation is to incorporate a list of factors for commercial reasonableness, which we will outline in our written comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
All right, next up, Kevin Cochran.
Thank you. Kevin Cochran with DraftKings again. First, we'd like to echo what Andrew and Jeremy said about official league data. We support the same positions that they do. Changing subjects a little bit, we would like to talk briefly about cloud storage as outlined in 19.4.116b. And we're really just asking for a clarification, and we do recognize that there was a change made from the first version of the regs that came out to these, which we do support, but we just want to clarify that our interpretation of this section is correct. So right now we see it reads for duplicate data or data not related to transactional wagering data. Can we get a clarification on whether or not it could be duplicate data of transactional wagering data? Because that is sort of for disaster recovery and disaster planning purposes. That's definitely a best practice that operators tend to use, is to have the the original data stored with the server, and then have backup data related to that transactional wagering data located in another place, usually in the cloud, if we get RIM approval.
Kevin, yes, that is our intent.
Great, thank you so much.
You bet.
No hands raised at the moment.
Okay, Leo, is your hand raised, or if this is from your previous question? Okay, great, thanks. All right, any other questions or comments on issue set 1?
Yes, this is Andrew Winchell from FanDuel again. On the geofencing requirement, it appears at the end of the geofencing section that operators have to maintain a log of any failed attempts to place a wager in a non-authorized location. And one of the things I think that would be, we're not aware of another jurisdiction that requires a specific log that can be then provided to the regulator upon request for that, and especially with the fact that in the state of Arizona, there's going to be the requirement to geofence out tribal land. It's going to lead to a large number potentially of what I would say innocuous fails of individuals who just don't realize that they might be driving through tribal land, or they might happen to be on tribal, and they try to place a wager. They're not trying to do anything untoward, but they just happen to do it, and then it's a fail. So not sure if there'd be the ability to either remove that or modify it to provide the ability that the department can request if they think that there's a suspicious attempts to place wagers from outside the jurisdiction, or repeated by an individual.
Andrew, I'm going to have Warren Nichols address that. Warren?
So Andrew, this section, this 117G actually states that the operator or the geofence provider. So it's our thought that this would just be, a digital log. It's not a handwritten log. It's a log where there's a record of failed attempts, whatever digital record that may be, and we would just be able to look at that if we were so inclined.
Okay, as I said, I'm not aware of it in another jurisdiction, and I guess I'd be interested to see how a geofence supplier would feel about that. But okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you. All right, any last minute questions on issue set 1 before moving on to issue set 2? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to issue set 2, systems and platforms, integrity and security assessment, events and wagers, and player accounts. Do we have any comments or questions on those subjects?
No hands raised currently.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, go Steve. I think it was Steve Tilla.
Yeah, I'm from the San Carlos Apache, from San Carlos Apache Reservation. Regarding the platform issue, I just got on this call right now, video call. In the legislation, it talks about the fact that you can use more than one platform. So in the regulation, it's sort of unclear to me. Regarding the platform issue, it was my understanding, just my own interpretation of reading the statutes and regulations initially, was that you could have more than one platform. For example, if you have a partner, if the tribe gets a partner, like some sports betting event wagering operator, that would be one platform. And then if you have another platform, you could get to a second partner and then have a second platform. That was my reading of the statute, and I was just wondering what comments you all have on that.
This is Jim Stipe. I can just repeat what was said previously, which is recommendation to study the terms system and platform. Each event wagering operator has the opportunity to offer a second platform based on the application and criteria set out in the rules. But there's only one system and one operator, as also made clear in the rules. So these aren't sub-licenses. But you could potentially have multiple platforms or two platforms. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jim. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Kevin, I think your hand's raised. I'm sorry, Kevin Cochran.
Thank you so much. So my question, I don't know whether it actually falls into issue set 1 or 2, but it kind of deals with change management. So it's the internal control and sort of updating of platforms and systems. So looking at 19.4.123, we just had one quick clarification in subsection C1A. So implementation of a new wagering feature or change which impacts wagering logic. We just would like to point to the attention of the department that that term wagering logic can be interpreted in a whole lot of ways. And these change management and these updates that we're going to be sending out will go to a lot of jurisdictions to cover a whole bunch of changes. So we would request that the department, when looking at these rules again, try to maybe sharpen this definition in a sense that the term like any fundamental change or something that shows that it is a substantive change that does align with the high impact change to put in this category, just because that term wagering logic could be used in so many different ways.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that.
And sorry, one quick follow-up would be on subsection D. We're going to submit this in our written comments, but the change management log is something that has been standardized across many of the industry or many of the other states that operators that are likely to apply in Arizona will be operating in. So there are some small tweaks to make to that log, which we'll submit in our written comment, that would really help operators standardize their process across different jurisdictions for change management.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, currently no hands raised.
And just, I'll repeat it at the end, but for your knowledge, we're keeping the written comments open until 11:59 p.m. Pacific time this evening. So please feel free to make any additional submissions until that time. Okay, any last questions or comments on issue set number 2, systems and platforms, integrity and security assessment, events and wagers, and player counts? Anyone on the phone that might have comments?
Hi, yes, this is Andrew Winchell from FanDuel. In relation to wagers, and especially on the payment of wagers, there is the requirement that winning tickets, anonymous winning tickets, obviously presuming in person, as well as winning tickets that are done through patron accounts, must be paid immediately upon verification. And I don't think it's clear in the requirements there that what verification entails. If you just go by the presumption that, okay, you verified that it's a winning ticket, but there's obviously other requirements both in the regulations, in the statute, and in our own internal control procedures to look at winning wagers in light of fraud, AML concerns, tax reporting, and tax withholding requirements if the winning wager is of a certain level. Also, obviously, the trigger to do the child support delinquent check and the delinquent tax check that's required by the statute and by regulations. So we would suggest that the those sections of the regulations not say be paid immediately, but rather be paid in line with the operator's approved internal controls, to acknowledge all the other reasons why there might be a delay between the verification that a wager is a winning wager and the actual ability to pay it.
Great, thank you, Andrew. I'm going to have Warren Nichols address that.
So, Andrew, on this one, we did make an adjustment here based on feedback that we received from a few different parties. It was our belief that it's saying upon verification, put the onus on the operator. We certainly could have written out a list of different things involved, potential things involved in the verification. We thought that was onerous. So we prefer to leave it as upon verification, and that verification is really up to you. You're going to have tax verifications, like you said. You're going to have debt offset. You're going to have potential fraud, and all the other things that's all part of your verification process that we believe does stem from your internal controls. Now, we can certainly put, pages and pages of guardrails behind that, but, we felt like we were trying to leave it to your discretion to have whatever your verification process is.
I appreciate that, and thank you very much for that. I think the question is on the clarity of the term verification, because I guess it appeared at first blush to us that verification simply meant that the wager was a winning wager and now you have to pay it immediately. But with this extra context, obviously for the record here, to be understanding that the term verification is an all-inclusive term as the department views it in relation to every potential item in our internal controls. I think that's fine. I mean, as we had suggested, and I think we might suggest again in our written comments, to have upon verification in accordance with the responsible party's internal controls, winnings, then you could do that, which then it's just more clarity. But thank you very much for the additional insight.
Sure, and we can look at that. We originally at one point we had upon verification by the system, and we didn't want that because we thought again that was too limiting. But we can certainly look at your suggestion. That's not a bad idea.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.
All right, next up we have Andrew Diss.
Thanks again, guys. Andrew Diss with Arizona Coyotes. So I just want to return to the platform and system, and sorry to beat a dead horse. So Mr. Stipe, let me throw out an example for you. We have the Arizona Coyotes, and we also have the Tucson Roadrunners in the state. So my understanding, based off of your comments, is that we're limited to one system provider. But for our platform, let's say we wanted to call one of those platforms Coyotes Bet, and we want to call the second platform Roadrunners Bet. Is that what you envision with the way that these regs are written? I just want to make sure that we're clear. Or maybe I'm totally off.
That's potentially something you could do.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Jerry Lemoon.
Hi, this is Jeremy Lemoon with BetMGM. I don't know if this goes under issue number 2, but just wanted to flag and seek additional clarification on methods of payment. It's my understanding that it's still not clear in the current regulations whether use of credit cards to fund accounts is permitted. So just wanted to flag that. Thank you.
Jerry, we did put in credit cards. I believe it's 128A. So I'll just direct your attention to there.
Perfect.
You bet.
All right, no hands raised right now.
Okay, we'll move on to issue set 3. Promotion and bonuses, accounting, auditing, patron disputes, debt set off, and then, miscellaneous. So any comments or questions on that issue set or anything at this point?
Hi, yes, this is Andrew Winchell from FanDuel. On the Rule 19.4.113 reserve requirements and bank accounts, we appreciate the changes to that have been made to attempt to clarify what operators need to provide for as far as the reserve. But we suggest that there be a definition of outstanding event wagering liability in order to ensure that there's clarity. And we suggest following language that is similar to what is in Colorado's rule for this, which is basically all amounts that we've accepted on wagers whose outcomes have not yet been determined, the amount that's owed but unpaid on wagers that have won, and the amount that's held for player accounts. That would be our suggestion.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andrew.
All right, no hands raised right now. Oh, first up, Kevin Cochran.
Thank you. I have a question for the department around R194139, the accounting standards. When looking through these, it seems like they are a lot heavier touch than some of the other jurisdictions that we operate in from a sports betting perspective. And seeing how a lot of these are going to be retail only. When I spoke to our finance and accounting team, they said that these are standards that have been adopted in Nevada that are frankly not repeated in a lot of other states because they do tend to be outdated. It's a lot of manual tracking of the system. And when you think that sports wagering or event wagering is going to be performed in retail facilities that are likely not going to be casinos in the state because they're going to be through partnerships with teams. We just had some question around, is there another way that we could potentially get to where you guys want to be with the accounting procedures that don't require as much manual reporting here? And we've pointed to Colorado in some previous comments, and we're still working on our comments that we want to submit today, and we want to be helpful, but just some of this stuff is very difficult for a team to do and does involve a significant amount of manual accounting work.
And you said you guys, have you made any, you're going to make the submission on your proposed language?
That is correct. So the first time around, we did submit accounting language from, I think it was Colorado, and there's also a more robust version that is found in the New Jersey online gaming and online sportsbook pieces. And we would definitely recommend that you guys at least take a look at some of those, because I mean, there's just a whole lot of what I've heard from our team is we would have to hire multiple people to just be tracing tickets through the system at the end of the day, and doing a lot of things that the system can do on its own now.
Okay, great. I know that we've looked at those jurisdictions, but we'll definitely look forward to your comments that are coming forward.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Up next up, we have John Pauly.
Hi everyone, this is John Pauly on behalf of Support Radar. My comments focus on the definition of a supplier. The current draft, section 101, number 27, requires league data providers to be licensed. That certainly makes sense, but our recommendation is to require all data providers to be licensed when providing services into the Arizona market. If the goal is to ensure that data powering each sportsbook is coming from a credible and a reliable source, then our recommendation is that all data providers should need a supplier license. Requiring all data providers is consistent with other jurisdictions like Michigan, Virginia, New Jersey, and others. This requirement also aligns with the reality that the vast majority of leagues and federations around the globe do not have or offer official league data. So bookmakers will want to offer these types of exotic and lower tiered sports in their betting catalogs, which means open source data will be a substantial part of the Arizona ecosystem. So again, licensing data providers, league data providers is certainly a step in the right direction. However, we recommend licensing all data providers for the sake of protecting consumers and ensuring accurate data feeds no matter the sport. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Next up, Alexander Graham.
Yes, hi, good morning. This is Alex Graham, Penn Sports Interactive, digital subsidiary of Penn National Gaming. We have a quick comment on the definition of marketing affiliate. We'll reference R19-4-101, number 20. So Penn recommends adding the definition to specify that a marketing affiliate's commission or fee is to be tied to specific measurements. We have seen in other jurisdictions, such as Michigan and Virginia, that an individual or entity is only deemed to be a marketing affiliate when their compensation is based on measurements such as the number of registrations, number of depositing registrations, or percentage of adjusted gross event wagering receipts. We believe the current definition is just a bit overly broad, and it would include celebrity endorsements, brand ambassadors, or standard television spots, which, again, is contrary to what we've seen in other jurisdictions. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other hands raised?
All right. Any comments or questions on any of the topics that we've covered today? And by all means, anyone on the phone, please feel free to ask your question.
Oh, we have one, Sarah Delsheim.
Hi, yes, this is Sarah Dalsheim again with San Carlos Apache Tribe. I was just wondering when we're going to hear more from the department regarding licensing allocation and how it's going to work.
Thank you, Sarah. We're keeping the public comments open until 11:59 p.m. today, and then we hope to have a proposal shortly thereafter. But the exact time frame I can't give you right now, just because we don't know all the comments that are going to come in, but it won't be too long. Any last minute questions? Andrew, I'll ask you on the phone. Anything else?
Yes, thanks. I was about to jump in. Thank you. Andrew Winchell again from FanDuel. I wanted to echo the concerns that Penn raised about the marketing affiliates and echo the concerns on the accounting standards from DraftKings, but specifically on the accounting standards R19-4-139D3. Actually, sorry. There's a requirement that when you're doing the audit, like some of the daily auditing pieces, you have to check a number of the tickets and the point spreads and money lines at which they were written against a, quote, independent source for questionable activity, example, newspaper, league website, etc. Our lines and odds are not published in the newspaper and are not maintained by the league websites. So I'm a little confused by what, like this, again, this might be harkening back to the very old days in, Nevada, where they would print the line, and the line was the line and everybody used the exact same line. But we actually develop our own lines internally and set them ourselves, or most operators may also use independent suppliers to provide lines for certain events and markets. So, but none of this is going to be published on a newspaper or a league website.
Okay, appreciate that. We'll take a look at this.
All right, no other hands raised right now.
Okay, last alibis, any sort of questions or comments? Again, I just want to remind everybody, our written comments via the web will be open until 11:59 p.m. Pacific time this evening. We certainly welcome further elaboration on some of the topics we've talked about here today, as well as anything that you want to opine upon in there. And I really appreciate everybody's work on this. You know, we appreciate the collaboration. We appreciate you guys working over the weekends reading these and coming up with comments and participating today. So I'll ask one last time for any questions, and otherwise it looks like we'll probably conclude this at 10 a.m. And I'll do one last call for anyone joining by phone. Any questions or comments? All right, well, thank you everybody for participating. We really appreciate your comments, and we look forward to any additional written submissions. Again, due tonight, 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you.
Go Suns.
Amen.